All right, the Masters of the Universe live-action film has finally arrived. And let me tell you right out of the gate, it is exactly the breathtaking, massive-scale cinematic spectacle we've literally all been craving. Today, I'm going to take you through a definitive cinematic breakdown. I want to pull back the curtain on the complete anatomical structure of this movie. We are going to dive deep into every single narrative choice, every major tonal pivot, and the grand visual execution, and I am not holding anything back. You know, we're moving way past those surface level reactions today to really examine the profound cinematic mechanics at play here. We're talking everything from the surprisingly grounded, character-driven opening acts all the way to the explosive, lore-heavy finale that fundamentally redefines this entire franchise. This is a comprehensive explainer of what makes this adaptation work so incredibly well, where its structural friction actually lies, and why it absolutely commands your attention. 40. To truly understand the gravity of this film, we have to recognize the profound emotional weight behind that number. We are talking about the culmination of a massive 40-year wait. Just think about that for a second. That is 4 entire decades of animated series, action figures, comic books, and purely fueled childhood imaginations, all funneling directly into the single definitive live-action realization. Entire generations have grown up with these characters deeply embedded in their cultural DNA. So sitting in the theater to experience this, well, it felt like a monumental event. Personally, I made absolutely sure to watch it in its original language, just to capture the purest, most unfiltered essence of the performances. And I can tell you for sure, the weight of those 40 years is palpable the exact second the lights go down in the cinema. When an audience has waited nearly half a century for a universe they love to be treated with this level of big-budget cinematic respect, the narrative stakes simply couldn't be higher. 2 hours and 12 minutes. We are strapping in for a fully family-friendly adventure that demands exactly 2 hours and 12 minutes of your time. And you know, in modern fantasy cinema, pacing is absolutely everything. It is this razor-thin tightrope to walk when a director is tasked with balancing a highly welcoming, family-friendly tone with massive, universe-spanning stakes. If a movie rushes through it, the world building just feels completely hollow. But if it lingers too long, the audience disengages and checks out entirely. The challenge of fitting 40 years of intricate, beloved mythology into a tight 2 hour and 12-minute window, that is a monumental screenwriting hurdle. So does the narrative actually justify that runtime? Does it genuinely earn your attention for every single one of those minutes? Well, to answer that, we have to meticulously unpack the film's structural foundation, starting right from the very first frame to see exactly how that momentum is built up. So who is Adam really? Let's start with the narrative foundation, the absolute beating heart of our story. Right from the jump, Adam is introduced as a character wrestling with a deep, honestly unshakable belief that he absolutely does not belong on Earth. And we're not just talking about your typical teenage angst here. No, this is a profound existential crisis that completely defines his early character arc. He's portrayed as entirely isolated, totally disconnected from the rhythm of the world around him, and harboring this quiet certainty that his true purpose lies somewhere else entirely. Actually, this is a brilliant storytelling starting point. Why? Because it immediately grounds a wild cosmic fantasy in a deeply personal, universally relatable emotional struggle. Long before we even get to the magic, the mythical swords, and the massive scale battles, we are introduced to a deeply human protagonist who is simply desperately searching for his true home. Step 1, Adam's earthly doubts. Step 2, meeting Tila and Duncan. And step 3, the forced journey to Eternia. I really want to meticulously break down his journey here because it sets up everything. We watch Adam's internal earthly doubts get suddenly and quite violently shattered by his true inciting incident, which is the arrival of Tila and Duncan. And, you know, they don't just happen to randomly show up. They act as the ultimate narrative catalyst. They arrive specifically to confirm his deepest existential suspicions. He isn't crazy. He truly doesn't belong here. Their arrival triggers a massive, unstoppable chain reaction that completely upends the narrative status quo. It's a beautifully executed classic hero's call to adventure, for sure, but it's delivered with a sudden, gripping urgency that physically yanks Adam out of his mundane, gray reality and thrusts him directly into the extraordinary. The bridge between the ordinary world and the magical realm is crossed with incredible kinetic force. Welcome to Eternia, a visual masterpiece. Because the moment that transition happens, the aesthetic shift is just staggering. Once we finally arrive, let me tell you, Eternia is flawlessly executed and completely visually breathtaking. It serves as the absolute perfect backdrop for the rising conflict. The creative team has built a world that is incredibly vibrant, rich, and just dripping with atmospheric density. The stark contrast between the muted, familiar tones of Earth and the hyper-saturated, deeply alien landscape of Eternia is an absolute visual feast. You genuinely feel the immense scale of this mythology coming to glorious, vibrant life right in front of you. The production design masterfully blends these striking CGI color palettes with what genuinely feels like heavy, grounded, practical textures. It's a world that feels both ancient and incredibly advanced at the same time, entirely wrapping us in a reality that honors the original source material while massively elevating it for modern cinema. Enter the Tyrant. Because, as we all know, an epic fantasy world is absolutely nothing without a terrifying antagonistic force. And that brings us to the entity currently ruling Eternia with an iron fist. The cinematic juxtaposition they use here is absolutely crucial. The exact moment we are seduced by the staggering beauty of this alien landscape, we are immediately confronted by the dark, oppressive shadow looming right over it. This visually stunning planet is actively decaying under the grip of a ruthless tyrant. And that specific contrast is exactly what gives the narrative its immediate, suffocating tension. The stakes are established instantly and viscerally. Eternia is a paradise, sure, but it is a deeply broken paradise, literally suffocating under a regime of absolute terror. Jared Skeletor steals the entire show. At the center of that terror is a performance that completely anchors the entire film. I absolutely have to give massive credit where it's due here. Jared's portrayal of Skeletor is the absolute highlight of the entire movie. He doesn't just play the role, he essentially redeems the character, completely washing away all past cinematic sins and any campy iterations we might remember. His performance is just a masterclass in blending genuine, horrifying menace with a captivating, hypnotic theatricality. He brings this aggressive physicality and a chilling voice modulation that makes him genuinely, truly threatening. Whenever he is on screen, he completely commands absolute attention. He steals the entire show, naturally elevating the conflict from a simple fantasy battle into a truly high-stakes, terrifying war.
So, does the pacing actually hold up? Now, as much as I absolutely loved the grand destination and the incredible scene-stealing villainy of Skeletor, any definitive cinematic breakdown requires us to take a serious, critical lens to the whole thing. We really need to have an honest conversation about the journey getting there and the film's structural pacing. Because let's face it, a great third act must be fundamentally earned by its first. We've praised the stunning visuals and the amazing antagonist, but a movie is a complete, holistic package, right? To truly understand why this film works and where it honestly struggles, we must examine how it handles its narrative momentum. Specifically, we need to look at those crucial early acts, right before the grand cosmic spectacle truly begins. Earth scenes equal a slow drag. I'll be completely honest with you here. The early scenes set on Earth are a major cinematic friction point. They drag immensely. While they are definitely necessary to establish Adam's psychological state and internal conflict, the execution just relies way too heavily on slow, plotting exposition. The pacing slows down to an absolute crawl. It really lacks the visual flair and the kinetic energy of what comes later, leaving you heavily feeling the weight of the runtime. You might actually find yourself mentally checking your watch, enduring a structural hurdle that feels distinctly less engaging than the rest of the film. Quite frankly, they're just not fun to get through. It is an unavoidable flaw, sort of an overlong prologue that asks for a lot of audience patience before the real adventure is allowed to kick into gear.
But the second half completely saves it. Honestly, the moment the setting shifts to Eternia, it becomes a textbook all's well that ends well situation. The film completely transforms. The cinematography, the sweeping musical score, and the editing instantly snap into this hyperkinetic focus. The movie aggressively catches its stride and perfectly locks into its groove, absolutely refusing to let go. All the sluggishness of those Earthbound scenes, instantly forgiven and forgotten the minute the true fantasy elements take over. The narrative momentum completely skyrockets, the emotional stakes solidify, and the film morphs into the exhilarating, adrenaline-fueled ride we were originally promised. It is a staggering recovery, a massive injection of energy that completely, retroactively saves the overall viewing experience. How did Travis Knight balance the tone? Now, you might be wondering how a film manages to recover from such a slow, exposition-heavy start so effectively. Well, that brings us directly to the visionary direction of Travis Knight. Directing a property with 40 years of specific cultural baggage is an incredibly daunting task. He had to navigate this razor-thin line between the inherently campy nature of a 1980s toy commercial and the grounded, high-stakes sensibilities that modern blockbuster audiences completely demand today. How do you pull off this massive tonal pivot mid-movie? How do you take a dragging, earthly drama and successfully launch it into a wildly entertaining, deeply sincere cosmic adventure without losing the actual soul of the franchise? The Thor Ragnarok effect. Knight's overarching strategy here is a brilliant utilization of what I like to call the Thor Ragnarok effect. Knight injects a massive, highly calibrated amount of Marvel-style humor into the dialogue. He heavily utilizes a comedic and tonal vibe that will immediately remind you of Thor Ragnarok. And this isn't just about telling jokes. It's honestly a vital survival mechanism for adapting an 80s property today. It allows the film to wink at the inherent absurdity of its own universe without ever undermining the actual stakes. It is vibrant, it refuses to take itself too seriously at the wrong moments, and this specific injection of humor breathes incredible life into the second half of the film. It prevents the dense mythology from becoming suffocating, making the character interactions pop, and ensuring the adventure remains genuinely, consistently fun. Understanding the assignment for new and old fans alike. What makes this direction so absolutely brilliant is that Knight completely understood the assignment. He achieved a near impossible masterclass in demographic tightrope walking. He perfectly balances the deep, intricate, respectful lore required to satisfy the hardcore 40-year loyalists, while simultaneously making the film wildly attractive to a brand new, uninitiated audience. The humor acts as the ultimate bridge here. It warmly welcomes newcomers who might not know the complex history of Eternia, making them feel instantly at home with the characters. Meanwhile, the stunning visual fidelity and the deeply respectful character arcs give longtime fans the definitive adaptation they have waited literally decades to see. It is a stunning balancing act of reverence and reinvention. An absolute theater necessity. Ultimately, looking at the entire cinematic package, the slow start, the massive kinetic recovery, the jaw-dropping landscapes of Eternia, and Jared's terrifying Skeletor, I can confidently say this is a fantastic weekend watch that completely transforms from a simple time pass into an incredible, necessary big screen theater experience. This is absolutely not a film to casually stream on your laptop while doing the dishes. It is an auditory and visual triumph that absolutely demands scale. The booming, immersive sound design and the sweeping, massive set pieces require the largest screen and the most powerful sound system you can possibly find. Experiencing the sheer cinematic spectacle of the second half in a crowded theater genuinely elevates the world building into a truly communal, unforgettable blockbuster event. Do not leave your seat. But before we wrap this deep dive up, I need you to swear to me that you will not leave the theater the moment the screen goes black. Seriously, I need to issue a massive, critical warning here. In the modern era of massive franchise building, the primary narrative concluding is essentially just a prologue. If you stand up, grab your popcorn bucket, and walk out when that title card hits, you are missing an absolutely crucial piece of the puzzle. The filmmakers have explicitly designed these moments to fundamentally alter your understanding of the story we just watched. Step 1, the movie ends. Step 2, the credits roll. Step 3, crucial future setup. When the movie ends and those credits begin to roll, the narrative architecture does not stop. You absolutely must sit through the entirety of the credits because the subsequent post-credit scenes are absolutely vital. They aren't just throwaway comedic gags, they are officially laying down the definitive, critical groundwork for the expansive future of this cinematic universe. They hint at massive paradigm shifts, looming new threats, and future cosmic conflicts that completely recontextualize exactly where the overarching story is heading next. It is world building at its absolute most tantalizing, and you do not want to miss it. So, is this the ultimate Masters of the Universe experience? As we conclude this definitive breakdown, we have to look at the massive picture we've uncovered together today. With this universe officially wide open, a brilliant new tonal blueprint flawlessly established by Travis Knight, and Skeletor setting an entirely new standard for on-screen villains, I have to leave you with a massive question to ponder. What incredible uncharted corners of Eternia will we explore next? The complex foundation has been meticulously built, the sprawling 40-year wait has undeniably paid off, and the sheer potential for the future is absolutely boundless. I highly recommend you experience this incredible cinematic journey for yourself to truly grasp the massive scale of what has just begun.